Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the narrow tunnel. The air was thick and dusty, making it hard to breathe. His headlamp cut through the darkness ahead of him. Behind him, rocks and broken metal blocked the way back to the surface. Still alive down there? Yuna's voice crackled through his comm device. Yeah, but this place gives me the creeps, Minho replied. He pushed forward through the rubble. The energy readings are getting stronger, though. Minho worked as a salvage engineer on the cargo ship Resilient Dawn. It was not a glamorous job. Humans were new to the galaxy, and most alien species saw them as useful workers but nothing special. They could fix things and follow orders, but they did not have the advanced technology or special powers that older alien races possessed. The ship had landed on Keth Prime 3 days ago. It was a dead world, covered in ruins from some ancient war. Captain Jinho had received a tip about possible salvage in the old city. Most of the crew thought it would be another waste of time, but Minho volunteered to check it out anyway. The tunnel opened up into a large chamber. Minho stood up and stretched his back. His light revealed walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and move when he was not looking directly at them. The floor was cracked and broken, with pieces of what looked like metal and crystal scattered everywhere. Yuna, you need to see this place, he said into his comm. What did you find? I think these are architect ruins. There was silence on the other end. The architects were a mystery to everyone in the galaxy. They had ruled everything 10,000 years ago, then vanished without a trace. They left behind incredible technology that no one could understand or copy. Most of their relics were dead or broken beyond repair. Minho walked carefully across the chamber. His scanner was beeping rapidly now. Something here was still active even after all these years. He followed the signal toward the far wall. There, embedded in a pile of rubble, he saw it. A crystal about the size of his fist, dark blue with veins of silver running through it. The surface was cracked in several places, and one whole side looked like it had been shattered and badly repaired. It gave off a very faint glow that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Found something, Minho said. He knelt down and carefully brushed away the debris around the crystal. Looks like some kind of architect device. Pretty banged up, though. Do not touch it. Yuna's voice was sharp with panic. Architect technology is dangerous. The Galactic Consortium says all relics must be turned over to the Ethereal Dominion immediately. Minho paused with his hand inches from the crystal. The Ethereal Dominion ruled the galaxy now. They were powerful beings who could read minds and control energy with their thoughts. They claimed to be the rightful guardians of architect technology, keeping it safe from lesser species who might misuse it. But something about the crystal called to him. The cracks in its surface reminded him of damaged fusion cores he had repaired many times. The way the energy flowed through it looked familiar, like circuits he had rewired on 100 different ships. Minho, are you listening? Get away from that thing. Just give me a minute, he said. He pulled out his portable scanner and ran it over the crystal. The readings were strange but not completely alien. The energy patterns looked chaotic at first, but when he watched them for a while, he started to see a pattern. This is weird, Yuna. The energy signature looks almost like an overloaded power core. See, if you channel the flow through this crack here, and redirect it through this damaged section. He reached out and gently touched the crystal. The moment his fingers made contact, the glow brightened slightly. The pulsing became faster, more regular. For just a second, he felt something brush against his mind. Not invasive like he had heard ethereal telepathy was, but gentle, almost curious. Minho, what did you do? I think it likes me. He carefully lifted the crystal from its resting place. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly light. The energy flow is stabilizing. Look at these readings. I cannot see anything from up here. Just get out of there before something bad happens. Minho tucked the crystal into his salvage pack. As he did, he noticed that his scanner was picking up several other energy signatures around the chamber. Smaller fragments, all dark and seemingly dead, but now showing faint traces of activity. There are more pieces down here. I think this crystal is waking them up somehow. That is exactly why you should leave it alone. Architect technology is beyond human understanding. Even the ethereals barely know how to use it safely. But Minho was not convinced. He spent his whole life fixing broken machines that everyone said could not be repaired. He had a talent for seeing how things were supposed to work, even when they were damaged beyond recognition. And looking at this crystal, he did not see ancient mystery or dangerous power. He saw a machine that had been hurt and needed help. I am coming back up, he said finally. But I am taking this with me. Minho, this is a really bad idea. Maybe, but what if it is not? He started back toward the tunnel. What if everyone is wrong about architect technology? What if it is not magic or beyond our understanding? What if it is just really advanced engineering? As he crawled back through the tunnel, the crystal continued to pulse gently in his pack. Each pulse seemed to sync with his heartbeat, as if the device was learning from him. The other fragments in the chamber had grown brighter before he left, responding to the main crystal like pieces of a puzzle, recognizing their missing parts. By the time Minho emerged into the pale sunlight of Keth Prime, he had made up his mind. He was going to figure out how this thing worked. Not by turning it over to the ethereals or following some ancient manual that probably did not exist anyway. He was going to fix it the human way, with patience, creativity, and complete stubbornness in the face of the impossible. 3 weeks later, Minho was still working on the crystal in secret. He had set up a small workspace in the cargo bay of the Resilient Dawn, hidden behind stacks of salvaged metal and spare parts. Every night after his regular duties, he would slip away to study the mysterious artifact. The crystal sat on his workbench, glowing softly under the bright work lights. He had rigged up several scanning devices around it, all humming quietly as they analyzed the energy patterns flowing through the damaged relic. His notebook was filled with sketches and calculations, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. "Still playing with that thing?" Yuna asked from behind him. Minho jumped, nearly knocking over a cup of coffee. "You scared me. I thought everyone was asleep." "I could not sleep. Too much coffee." She walked closer and looked at his setup. "This is getting out of hand, Minho. If Captain Jinho finds out you are hiding architect technology, he already knows." Yuna stared at him. "What? I told him last week." He was not happy at first, but when I showed him what I discovered, he changed his mind. Minho pointed to a series of readings on his scanner. "Look at this energy pattern. It is not random. It is trying to complete some kind of circuit, but the damage is preventing it from working properly." Captain Jinho appeared in the doorway. He was a practical man who had been running cargo ships for 20 years. "Cannot sleep either. This thing has the whole crew on edge. Sorry, Captain. I know I should have asked permission before finding the most interesting piece of technology we have ever seen." Jinho walked over to the workbench. "Do not apologize for being curious. That is what makes us human." Over the past weeks, Minho had learned amazing things about the crystal. It was not just a weapon or a tool. It was more like a sophisticated computer made from living crystal. The cracks in its surface were not just damage. They were interrupting data pathways that had been running for thousands of years. "Show him the resonance test," Yuna suggested. Minho nodded and picked up a small metal rod. "Watch this." He touched the rod to one of the cracks in the crystal. Immediately, the glow intensified and spread along the crack like light flowing through water. "It is trying to heal itself, but it needs help." "How is that possible?" Jinho asked. "I think the architects designed their technology to be modular, like building blocks that can work together." Minho set down the rod and picked up his scanner. "This crystal is not a complete device. It is a core component, designed to work with other parts." Bin, the ship's physicist, had been helping Minho understand the energy readings. He was young and eager to learn, and he had some interesting theories about how architect technology might work. The energy patterns suggest some kind of quantum entanglement network, Bin had explained earlier. Each crystal fragment might be connected to others across vast distances. But the network is broken now. Minho had been thinking about that for days. If the crystal was part of a larger network, then maybe the other fragments he had found in the ruins were meant to work together. He had brought back 3 smaller pieces, all apparently dead, but they showed faint responses when placed near the main crystal. "I want to try something," he said. He carefully arranged the smaller fragments around the main crystal in a triangular pattern. If this is modular technology, then maybe. The moment he placed the last fragment, everything changed. The main crystal pulsed once very brightly, and suddenly all the fragments began to glow. Energy flowed between them in thin streams of blue light, creating a network of connections that grew stronger each second. "Incredible," Jinho whispered. But Minho was not done. He had been working on something for weeks, a way to interface human technology with the architect systems. He picked up a device he had built from spare parts, a simple control interface connected to the ship's computer. This might be crazy, but I think the architects designed their technology to adapt to whoever was using it. He connected his device to the crystal network. They did not make instruction manuals because the technology was supposed to learn from its users. The crystal network pulsed again, and suddenly, Minho's scanner displays went wild. Energy readings spiked and shifted as the system tried to understand the human technology connected to it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystals began to sing. It was a low harmonic sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The frequency made the metal walls of the cargo bay vibrate slightly. More importantly, Minho could feel the sound in his mind. Not invasive or controlling, but like a conversation in a language he was just beginning to understand. "It is trying to communicate," Yuna said in wonder. "More than that." Minho watched his readings carefully. "It is trying to sync with our technology. Look at these patterns. They match our computer's processing rhythms." Over the next hour, they watched as the crystal network slowly learned to work with human systems. It was like watching a child learn to walk. The energy flows became more stable, the connections between fragments grew stronger, and the harmonic song became more complex and beautiful. Finally, Minho felt confident enough to try direct interaction. He placed his hand on the main crystal and focused his thoughts on a simple idea: repair. The response was immediate. The cracks in the crystal's surface began to close, not physically but energetically. The breaks in the data pathways were being bridged by new connections that formed as he watched. The crystal was not just healing, it was evolving, adapting to work with human intuition and creativity. "This changes everything," Jinho said quietly. "This is not just some ancient weapon or tool. This is technology that grows and learns." Yuna was studying the energy readings with amazement. "The power output has increased by 300%, but it is completely stable." "How is that possible?" "Because it is not trying to work like an architect device anymore," Minho realized. "It is learning to work like a human device. Our technology is not as advanced, but it is more flexible, more creative." The crystal network pulsed once more, and suddenly Minho understood. The architects had not vanished. They had reached the limits of their own perfection. Their technology was incredibly advanced but completely rigid. It could not adapt or grow beyond what they had originally designed. But human technology was different. It was messy and unpredictable, but it could evolve. And now, for the first time in 10,000 years, architect technology was evolving too. "We need to be very careful about what we do next," Jinho said. "If word gets out about this, the galaxy will never be the same," Minho finished. He looked at the glowing network of crystals, humming softly with new life. "The question is, are we ready for that?" 2 months later, the Resilient Dawn docked at Nexus Station. It was one of the biggest trading posts in the galaxy, a massive structure that housed millions of beings from hundreds of different species. Ships came and went constantly, carrying goods and information across the stars. Minho had spent the journey building a portable version of his crystal network. It was smaller than the setup in the cargo bay, but much more powerful. The crystals had continued to evolve, learning new ways to channel energy that even he did not fully understand yet. "Remember, we tell no one about the artifact," Captain Jinho warned as they prepared to disembark. "We are here to trade salvage and buy supplies. Nothing more." But keeping secrets on Nexus Station was nearly impossible. Too many people, too many listening devices, too many ways for information to leak out. Within hours of their arrival, word had spread that the human ship was carrying something unusual. Sue found them in a cantina near the docking bay. She was a quiet woman who worked for human intelligence, gathering information that might be useful to Earth's government. Minho had never seen her look worried before, but today she seemed nervous. "You need to leave," she said without preamble. "Right now." "What are you talking about?" Jinho asked. "The ethereal dominion knows about your discovery. So does the hegemony of Razor Worlds. Even the Machine Collective has sent probes to investigate." Sue sat down at their table and lowered her voice. "Half the galaxy thinks you found a working architect weapon." "That is ridiculous," Yuna said. "We would never what?" A new voice interrupted. They all turned to see 3 figures approaching their table. The leader was tall and elegant with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to look right through them. Ethereal Lord Vexathera was one of the most powerful beings in the Dominion. capable of reading minds and controlling energy with just a thought. Behind him stood two enforcers, heavily armed and ready for trouble. "Lord Vexithera," Sue said carefully, "this is just a routine trading stop. Do not insult my intelligence, human." The ethereal's voice echoed strangely, as if spoken by multiple people at once. "We know you have discovered architect technology. By galactic law, all such artifacts must be surrendered to the Dominion for safekeeping." Minho felt the crystal device in his jacket pocket grow warm. It was responding to the tension in the air, preparing itself for whatever might come next. He tried to stay calm, but his heart was racing. "We do not know what you are talking about," Jinho said. Vexithara smiled coldly. "Search their ship." "You have no authority here," Sue protested. "This is neutral territory. My authority comes from 10,000 years of galactic law. The architect's legacy is too dangerous for lesser species to possess." The ethereal gestured toward the docking bay. "I will not ask again." That was when everything went wrong. A group of hegemony soldiers had been watching from across the cantina. They were massive beings with thick armor and energy weapons, representatives of a military alliance that believed in taking what they wanted by force. When they saw the ethereals making their move, they decided to act first. "Nobody moves," the lead soldier shouted, raising his weapon. "That artifact belongs to the hegemony by right of salvage." The cantina erupted in chaos. Customers scattered for cover as both groups of aliens faced off against each other. Vexithara's enforcers drew their weapons while the hegemony soldiers spread out to surround the humans. "This is exactly what we were trying to avoid," Yuna muttered. Minho's hand went instinctively to the crystal device. The moment his fingers touched it, he felt its power surge through him. It was not like touching a machine. It was like touching something alive, something eager to help but waiting for direction. "Surrender the artifact now, or we will take it by force," Vexithara demanded. "The artifact belongs to us," the hegemony leader countered. "We claimed salvage rights to this sector." Both groups raised their weapons, pointing them at the small group of humans caught in the middle. Minho realized they were about to become casualties in an alien power struggle over technology. They barely understood themselves. But maybe it was time to show the galaxy what humans could do when pushed too far. "Stop," Minho said quietly. Nobody heard him over the shouting and posturing. Energy weapons charged up with deadly whines. Several other species in the cantina were taking sides, creating an even bigger confrontation. "I said stop." Minho pulled out the crystal device. It looked harmless enough. Just a few crystals connected by thin metal wires, small enough to fit in his palm. But the moment it appeared, every scanner and sensor in the cantina started screaming warnings. Vexithara's eyes widened. Impossible. That level of energy output from such a small device. "Yeah, we humans are full of surprises," Minho said. He could feel the crystal network responding to his emotions, his anger at being threatened, his determination to protect his friends, his refusal to back down from bullies no matter how powerful they claim to be. "Put down your weapons and walk away," he continued. "All of you," the hegemony leader laughed. "One small human with a broken crystal thinks he can threaten us? My personal shields can deflect any energy weapon." "Let us find out," Minho said. He did not really know how to use the device as a weapon, but he could feel it waiting for instructions, ready to channel power in whatever way he needed. So he focused on a simple idea: remove the threat without hurting anyone. The crystal pulsed once, very brightly. What happened next shocked everyone, including Minho. A wave of energy swept out from the device, but instead of destroying anything, it simply turned off the weapons. Every energy rifle, every personal shield, every piece of combat technology in the cantina stopped working instantly. But that was not all. The wave continued beyond the cantina, spreading throughout the entire station. Within seconds, every weapon system, every defensive screen, every piece of military technology on Nexus Station had been completely disabled. The silence was deafening. "How?" Vexithara whispered. Minho stared at the crystal device in his hand. It was glowing softly, as if pleased with its work. I just asked it to stop the violence." "That is impossible," the hegemony leader said. "Our shields are quantum encrypted. No weapon can penetrate them." It did not penetrate them, Yuna realized. It bypassed them completely, like they were not even there. For the first time in galactic history, humans had displayed technology that made the elder species nervous. The crystal had not just disabled their weapons, it had ignored every defense they possessed, operating on principles that none of them understood. Minho looked around the silent cantina, then back at the crystal in his hand. I think we should probably leave now. Yes, Jinho agreed quickly. Right now would be good. As they hurried toward the docking bay, Minho could hear excited chatter starting behind them. By tomorrow, word would spread across the galaxy that humans had somehow turned architect technology into something new and unprecedented. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their complete refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The first attack came 6 weeks after the incident at Nexus Station. The farming colony of New Sol was hit without warning by an ethereal strike force. They did not try to capture the planet or steal resources. They simply destroyed everything and everyone they could find. The official statement from the ethereal dominion was brief and terrifying. Humanity has been contaminated by corrupted architect knowledge. To prevent the spread of this contamination, all human settlements will be cleansed. This is for the good of the galaxy. Minho watched the news reports from Earth's military headquarters. The images of burned cities and empty farmlands made him sick to his stomach. Thousands of innocent people had died, and it was his fault for discovering the crystal. This is not your fault, May said firmly. She was a military engineer who had been assigned to work with Minho after word of his discovery reached Earth's government. The Ethereals have been looking for an excuse to attack humanity for years. You just gave them one they thought they could sell to the rest of the galaxy. General Hyun, the man in charge of Earth's defense forces, was studying tactical displays showing ethereal fleet movements. They are hitting our outer colonies first, working their way toward the core systems. We have maybe 6 months before they reach Earth itself. What about the other species? Yuna asked. Surely they will not stand by and watch genocide happen. Most of them are staying neutral, Hyun replied grimly. The Machine Collective has sealed their borders. The hegemony is considering joining the Ethereals if they can get a share of our territory. Everyone else is too scared to get involved. Minho looked at the crystal device sitting on the lab table. Over the past weeks, teams of human scientists and engineers had been studying it, trying to understand how it worked. They had made copies of the basic design, but none of them worked as well as the original. The problem is that each crystal network is unique, May explained. They adapt to their users. Your device works so well because it has been learning from you for months. The new ones are like babies. They need time to grow and develop. But time was something humanity did not have. The second wave of attacks hit 3 more colonies simultaneously. This time, the Ethereals broadcast the destruction live across the galaxy, showing massive fleets overwhelming human defenses with ease. Their message was clear. Resistance was futile. That was when human stubbornness kicked in. If they want a war, we will give them one, General Hyun declared. May, how quickly can you mass-produce crystal weapons? The basic devices? Maybe 100 per month if we push all our factories to maximum output. Not good enough. We need thousands. Minho had been thinking about the same problem. What if we are approaching this wrong? Instead of trying to copy my device exactly, what if we build different versions for different purposes? He pulled up his research notes on the holographic display. The crystals adapt to their users, right? So instead of one complex device, we could make simpler ones that specialize in specific tasks. Working around the clock, teams of engineers across human space began developing new applications for the crystal technology. Rin, a brilliant physicist from the Mars colonies, discovered that multiple crystals could be networked together to share processing power. Jin and Wu, twin brothers who worked on spacecraft design, found ways to integrate crystal arrays into ship weapon systems. Nara, a software engineer, made perhaps the most important breakthrough of all. She figured out how to program the crystals using human computer languages, allowing them to interface directly with existing military systems. The beauty of this approach is scalability, she explained during a video conference with teams on 6 different worlds. Each crystal learns from the others in its network. So when one device figures out how to counter an ethereal shield, all the connected devices learn the same trick instantly. The first test came when an ethereal patrol attacked the mining station at Ceres. The defenders had only 3 of the new crystal weapons, but they were networked together and had been learning from Minho's original device for weeks. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, the entire ethereal strike force had been disabled. Not destroyed, the crystal weapons had simply turned off every system on their ships, leaving them floating helplessly in space. The human defenders captured 17 advanced ethereal vessels without firing a single conventional shot. News of the victory spread quickly through human space, and suddenly everyone wanted crystal weapons. Factories on every human world began retooling to produce them. Each new batch was better than the last as the crystal network shared information and learned from experience. The ethereals, meanwhile, were discovering that their technological superiority meant nothing against weapons that simply ignored their defenses. Their energy shields, quantum armor, and psionic barriers were all useless. The crystal weapons operated on principles that bypassed conventional physics entirely. How is this possible? Lord Vexithera demanded during an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Architect technology should not work this way. But humanity was not trying to use architect technology the way it was originally designed. They were improving it, adapting it, making it work in ways the original builders had never imagined. The turning point came during the Battle of Alpha Centauri. A massive ethereal fleet, over 200 ships strong, arrived expecting to crush the human defenders with overwhelming force. Instead, they found themselves facing a coordinated network of crystal weapons that had been learning and evolving for months. The human fleet was much smaller, only 30 ships, but each one was equipped with advanced crystal arrays designed specifically to counter ethereal tactics. When the battle began, it looked like a slaughter. It was, but not the way the ethereals had planned. The crystal weapons did not just disable the attacking fleet. They systematically dismantled it ship by ship with surgical precision. Advanced ethereal dreadnoughts were reduced to drifting hulks in minutes. The few ships that tried to retreat found their engines shut down before they could escape. But the most shocking part was the restraint shown by the human forces. Despite months of brutal attacks on their colonies, they did not kill the ethereal crews. Every ship was disabled and boarded, every survivor taken prisoner. "We are not like them," General Hune announced to the galaxy after the battle. "We do not wage war against civilians. We do not commit genocide, but we will defend ourselves and we will win." The message was received loud and clear. Other species that had been considering joining the ethereals suddenly found reasons to remain neutral. Some even began quietly offering support to humanity, seeing which way the wind was blowing. The hegemony of razor worlds, which had been preparing to attack human territory, suddenly announced they were withdrawing from all military operations. The Machine Collective broke their isolation to offer trade agreements with human worlds. Even some ethereal colonies began surrendering, rather than face crystal weapons in battle. But Lord Vexithera was not finished. If he could not defeat humanity through conventional warfare, he would try a different approach. He began gathering every ethereal fleet in the galaxy for one final massive assault. The target would be Earth itself. "They are coming," May reported during the final strategy meeting. "Every ship they have, plus allies from a dozen different species who still think they can win by siding with the Dominion." Minho looked at the tactical display showing the approaching armada. Over 1,000 ships all heading toward humanity's homeworld. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. "Can we stop them?" General Hune asked. Minho thought about how far they had come since that day in the ruins of Keth Prime. The crystal technology had evolved beyond anything he had originally imagined. Humanity had turned ancient relics into something entirely new, weapons that grew stronger through creativity and cooperation rather than raw power. "We can do better than stop them," he said finally. "We can show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home." The enemy armada appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Over 1,000 ships spread across space in perfect formation, their weapons charging for the final assault that would end humanity forever. Lord Vexithera stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed any human vessel. Around him, representatives from a dozen allied species waited, eagerly for their share of human territory once the planet was cleansed. "Begin the attack," he commanded. But Minho was ready for them. He stood in the command center buried deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by the most advanced crystal network ever built. Dozens of restored architect cores hummed with power, connected by streams of energy that created patterns too complex for the eye to follow. Each core had been enhanced with human engineering, improved far beyond their original specifications. All planetary defense grids are online, Nara reported from her station. We have 47 major crystal arrays positioned around the globe, plus thousands of smaller installations. Jin and Wu monitored the space-based defenses from their posts at tactical control. Fleet assets report ready. Every ship in Earth's defense force is equipped with networked crystal weapons. May watched the enemy formation through long-range sensors. They are spreading out for orbital bombardment. Classic ethereal tactics, overwhelming firepower from multiple directions. General Hyun looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet. Can our defenses handle that many ships? Minho placed his hand on the primary crystal core. Immediately he felt the entire network respond to his touch. Every weapon, every sensor, every defensive system on Earth and in space became an extension of his will. But more than that, he could feel the network itself, a living web of intelligence that had been growing and learning for months. They are not just facing our defenses, he said quietly. They are facing the combined creativity and stubbornness of the entire human race. The first wave of ethereal fire lit up the darkness of space. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma charges streaked toward Earth. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust and boil its oceans. None of them reached their target. The crystal network activated with a sound like a symphony made of pure mathematics. Energy barriers materialized around Earth, but these were not simple shields. They were adaptive, responsive barriers that analyzed each incoming attack and neutralized it with surgical precision. Energy beams were redirected harmlessly into space. Plasma charges were broken down into component particles. Gravitational weapons found their effects reversed and reflected back at their sources. Impossible, Vexthara snarled.
Nothing can defend against that much concentrated firepower.
But humanity had learned something important about architect technology during their months of experimentation. It was not designed to be used defensively. The original architects had built weapons of incredible power but limited imagination. They could destroy anything, but they could not create or protect. Humans had changed that. Phase 2, Minho announced. The crystal network pulsed once, and suddenly the space around Earth filled with new energy signatures. The network was not just defending, it was scanning every enemy ship simultaneously, analyzing their weaknesses and preparing countermeasures. Warning, Nara called out. Energy output is approaching critical levels. I know, Minho replied. He could feel the strain on the network, but he could also feel its determination to protect the planet it had learned to call home. Trust the system. Trust what we built together. The second phase began with surgical precision. Instead of trying to destroy the massive enemy fleet, the crystal network simply turned it off. Ship by ship, system by system, the ethereal armada found itself helpless. Weapons stopped firing. Engines shut down. Life support systems remained active, but everything else went dark. Within 30 minutes, over 1,000 warships were drifting powerless in Earth's solar system, but Minho was not finished. Phase 3, he said. This was the part he had been planning for weeks but had never tried before. Using the network's connection to the disabled ships, he began broadcasting a message directly into the minds of every alien in the fleet. Not through invasive telepathy like the ethereals used, but through pure information, showing them exactly what had happened and why. He showed them the discovery on Keth Prime, the months of careful study and adaptation, the evolution of crystal technology from ancient relics into something entirely new, the human refusal to accept limitations or bow to authority just because it claimed to be superior. Most importantly, he showed them the choice humanity was offering. We could destroy you, his message said. We have weapons that can crack your ships like eggs and scatter your atoms across the void. But we will not do that. We are not conquerors or exterminators. Images flowed through the network showing human colonies where different species lived and worked together. Research stations where alien and human scientists collaborated on projects that benefited everyone. Trade routes that brought prosperity to dozens of worlds. We want to build something better than what came before. A galaxy where power comes from creation instead of destruction, where species work together instead of fighting over scraps of ancient technology. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ship after ship began broadcasting surrender signals. Captains who had come to Earth expecting easy victory found themselves faced with an offer they had never imagined. partnership instead of conquest. Lord Vexthera was one of the last to surrender. His flagship drifted powerless among the growing crowd of disabled vessels, its once mighty weapon systems as useless as decorations. "This is not possible," he whispered. "The Dominion has ruled for 10,000 years. We are the rightful heirs to architect power." "You are the heirs to architect limitations," Minho replied through the network. "You inherited their technology but not their vision. You learned to use their tools but never to improve them. The final phase was the most ambitious of all." As the disabled fleet watched in amazement, the Crystal Network began sharing its knowledge. Not weapons or military secrets, but the fundamental principles that made human-enhanced architect technology work. Cooperation instead of domination. Creativity instead of rigid programming. The willingness to change and grow instead of clinging to ancient perfection. "This is what we offer the galaxy," Minho announced. "Not conquest, but transformation. Not human rule, but human partnership." Within hours, representatives from dozens of species were requesting meetings. The Machine Collective emerged from isolation to propose joint research projects. Former hegemony worlds declared independence and applied for human protection. Even some ethereal colonies began broadcasting messages of support. The old galactic order, built on fear and ancient authority, crumbled in a single day. 6 months later, Minho stood in the same ruins on Keth Prime, where he had first found the crystal. But now the dead world was alive with activity. Archaeologists from 100 different species worked side by side, uncovering architect sites that had been hidden for millennia. "Finding anything interesting?" Yuna asked as she approached through the bustling excavation site. "More pieces of the puzzle," Minho replied. He held up a fragment of crystal that pulsed with warm light. "Each new discovery tells us more about what the architects were trying to build." "And what was that?" Minho looked out over the dig site, where humans and aliens worked together with enthusiasm that reminded him of children playing with fascinating toys. "I think they were trying to create the perfect galaxy. Perfect order, perfect peace, perfect control over everything. That does not sound so bad, it is not. But perfection does not grow or change or create new possibilities." He pocketed the crystal fragment and smiled. "The architects built amazing technology, but they forgot the most important ingredient, which is hope. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today, and that we have the power to make it happen." As they walked back toward the bustling research station that had grown up around the ruins, Minho reflected on how much had changed since that first day when he touched a broken crystal and decided to fix it. The galaxy was still far from perfect. There were still conflicts and problems in species that preferred the old ways of doing things. But for the first time in 10,000 years, there was genuine hope for something better. And it had all started with one human who refused to accept that anything was impossible to repair.